My name is Edward Hall, and I was stationed at Hickam Field in Hawaii on December the 7th, 1941, when the Japanese surprised us with an attack that devastated the whole island. I had taken a job in the mess hall as a permanent KP. Now, all military knows what KP is, but I got paid extra for it because myself and 3 or 4 other guys, we were permanent KPs. We got paid extra, and nobody else had to do it. Of course, they all chipped in and paid. But anyway, that's what we were doing. Now, I'm going to talk about a big mess hall a little later, but right now I'm going to talk about a little temporary wooden mess hall. There was 4 of them right down where our cantonment was, and our mess hall had shut down because we wanted to do some things and redo the mess hall and make preparations for Christmas. So we had moved a air compressor into the dining room because we were going to spray paint the mess hall. And the lumber yard, and one of the artists that we had, he made cutouts of every state in wood, shellacked them, and he put the town and city of where each member of the organization was from. Like my being from South Carolina and from Greenwood, he put a little dot there where Greenwood would be and put the name. And he did that for every state of every guy that was from a state. So we were going to put those up. So in the meantime, our main stove was shut down, and we had a field stove that we would cook for ourselves. So on that particular morning, and I went into the mess hall, my friend Alex says, "Ed, you know that first sergeant and all his cronies, they must have been in here last night." Because we had plenty of food in the walk-in refrigerator and in the storeroom. They messed up every doggone pan in the place, especially the frying pans. He says, "Clean us a frying pan. I'll start the field stove, and I'll start the air compressor. And we'll have breakfast, and we'll go to work." Well, he started the field stove, he started the compressor, and I'm cleaning a skillet, and all of a sudden, poof! What is that, air compressor acting up? And then I hear another poof, a little bit louder. And I looked around at that thing again, no. And then I heard explosions like you wouldn't believe. Up the street to my right. I ran to the back door, and I looked to my right, and I saw Hangar 7 and 9 blowing up. Planes flying everywhere. And then here come one straight across at me, kicking the asphalt up on the tarmac of the taxi strip across the street, coming straight at me. He was so low on the ground, he had to pull up to miss the building I was in, which was only about 15 feet high, and he had to pull up to miss it. While pulling up, he quit firing. That was the only thing that saved my life. He was coming straight at me firing, but he had to pull up to miss the electrical wires and the building I was standing in. And that was the only thing that saved my life at that moment.
When did you realize who was attacking?
Well, right then and there, when he pulled up, and I saw that red ball, and another thing, when he pulled up, he banked to his right, which his left, well, the cockpit, he was looking straight at me and I was looking at him, the pilot. And this only happened, just a flash. It happened quicker than I can tell it. We were looking at each other, he smiled at me, and that was it. And I thought, you son of a gun, you're having a ball, aren't you? And you're scaring the hell out of me. Well, from there, I ran outside. I couldn't believe that this was happening, but I knew it was. And I'm standing outside, I'm still looking around. I'm bewildered. Some guy reaches out, grabs me by the shoulder, pulls me under the eave of the building, and he says, "Are you trying to get yourself killed, you idiot?" And it wasn't 2 seconds later, here come another strafing, and he took off about 2 inches of the edge of that eave that we were standing under. That was my lifesaver number 2. So then I says to myself, to heck with this KP crap, we're not feeding anyway. I'm going back to the motor pool, see what I can do to be of help. But I know things are just absolutely being destroyed. But I got to the motor pool. Oh, by the way, another thing, on the way to the motor pool, see, all of this happens quicker than I can tell it. But on the way to the motor pool, I saw the damnedest explosion from Pearl Harbor. Because, as I said, we were right next door to it. Well, I didn't know what it was, but I found out later that was the Arizona that blew up.
What did it look like?
Oh, man, it was the biggest ball of fire and smoke you could ever imagine. And I had no idea what had happened. I thought, well, maybe it was ammunition dump or something. Yeah. But anyway, I continued on in the motor pool, and the only truck that was left was a pickup. So I was told to take the pickup and go up Hanger Avenue and do what I could. Now, Hanger Avenue was exactly what it was. All the hangars were on the left side. Buildings were on the right side. Go up Hanger Avenue and see what you can do to help. Well, nobody bothered me until I got up by the big barracks. The big $1 million barracks that housed 3,200 men. And this guy comes running out, flagged me down. Turned out he was a medic. And he says, "Come with me, take your keys so nobody will steal your truck. Come with me, we got wounded, we got to get them to the hospital." So I went into the building with him and we wound up with 4 guys. 2 of them could sit, and we had to lay 2 of them on the floor and get them to the hospital. And then we went back looking for more wounded. Well, we did this for the next closer to 4 hours that we picked up wounded. And I think one of the most grisly scenes I saw was, there was this one guy laying there, and I went to check him out. And I rolled him over on his back, and as I did, his intestines fell out of his stomach. That was a gruesome sight. Well, the rest of the wounded didn't bother me as much as he did. But that's what we did for the next 3 or 4 hours.
What do you remember about some of the other wounded men and what their injuries were?
Oh, it was the usual things, chest wounds, shoulder wounds, arms blown off, broken legs, oh God, it just kind of gets to me. It was one horrible day, all those wounded and all those that were killed. Now, we found the dead one. We didn't pick him up. He was beyond help anyway. So he was later, and we picked up the dead later. And then along about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we were shuffling in bigger trucks. The more seriously wounded who had been stabilized, we took them down to Triple General Hospital, which was down at Fort Shafter. And then that night, I was back in my pickup truck again. Oh, I didn't tell you this part. We were strafed again, the medic and I, and I don't know how this happened, but the bullets came through the center of the truck, tore out the back window and the windshield, and bullets through the roof. But neither one of us got hurt. We didn't even get cut from the glass flying. That was number 3 that I went through that could have killed me. I was very fortunate. I was very lucky that day. Now, a little amusement thing. I spoke of the big barracks a while ago. The big barracks was a centrally located huge mess hall and dining room with 9 different wings attached to it. And each wing was 3 floors high and no air conditioning. But the windows only had screens, there were no glass. And within the building, we had a barber shop, we had a first aid unit that was open and manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We had a tailor shop, we had a dry cleaners, we had a post exchange branch. We didn't have a post office. The post office was over by the main post exchange. But I had a friend slept on the 2nd floor, and he was walking guard duty that morning, or he was corporal of the guard, over in Hangar 9, I believe it was. Well, anyway, his bomb, or his bid, was a victim of a direct hit. That is, the window sill by his bid. Of course, the whole thing was blown to smithereens. But he was not hurt. Well, let me put it another way. He said he was blown halfway across the hangar when that bomb hit that destroyed that hangar, or a couple of bombs, whatever it was. But then I lost him at the Battle of Midway. His B-17 never made it back from the battle, so we lost him. And then I lost 2 fairly good acquaintances, and 1 very good acquaintance that we served together in Langley Field recruit camp. And all 3 of them were killed that day. Let's see, Leland, what was his last name? Leland, can't think of it. And then there was Ernest, and then there was Robert Kelly. The other 2, I can't remember their last names, but I guess I'm fortunate I remember their first names. But anyway,
All three of them were killed at Pearl Harbor.
they were all killed on Hickam Field that day. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know they were lost until, I guess a couple of weeks later, when things kind of died down a little bit. I went looking for them, and then I was told that they were killed that day. I had no idea they were gone. And it was so heart-touching to lose three people that you know, and then lose the fourth one at the Battle of Midway. It was really a bad situation. But now I spoke of the dining room, and I wanted to impress upon the people that are seeing this. That dining room was so huge, you could put 6 regular size basketball courts in it. That's how big that dining room was. And those people in the kitchen, there was, I can't remember if it was 4 or 6 that ran into the walk-in refrigerator at the big barracks kitchen, and they were killed by a 500-pound bomb that landed on top of the walk-in refrigerator. Now, they did not have a mark on them. They were killed by concussion. And that was another tragedy. And the kitchen itself, they had the hugest pots you ever saw in your life to cook different meals in, like stews or cream of wheat or stuff of that nature. All kinds of vegetables, everything. They were huge. And we had 4, no, I believe it was 6. It was either 4 or 6 cafeteria lines that kept the food warm as the guys went through to get their food. It was one huge kitchen, but it was destroyed completely, and so was the dining room. They did repair the dining room, and they used that for a movie theater, because we didn't really, the little movie theater we had was not adequate. See, the field was not complete yet. I do believe there was supposed to be, let's see, hangar 2, 4, 6, 8. I believe there was supposed to be, like 8 more hangars. Because here's the way it was laid out. The control tower was on the hangar side, of course, and that was called Building 1. Then there was hangar 3 and 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17. And I believe that was it on that end. Now, on the other end, on the other side of the tower, was hangar 2 and 4, which had just been completed and was straight across the street from that mess hall that I was in. And it was bombed and strafed. But evidently, the bomb actually never hit the hangar. It hit the outside, the ramps, and that. The guy was a lousy shot. But anyway, there was supposed to be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. And I believe that's all it was going to be. I don't know that for a fact. Now, that's my own ideas, because they did build hangar 2 and 4. And there was talk about the rest of the hangars, but I don't know for a fact if they were going to be built or not. Of course, they never were.
Could you please tell me about what you remember regarding the men fighting back at the Japanese planes? Did you see any of the American planes taking off? Was there
No.
any anti-aircraft fire?
No, I didn't see any of that. I was too busy. The only thing I can tell you about the fighters getting off, we had about 6 fighters got off from Wheeler Field, which was the fighter base, and then there was a little auxiliary field called Haliva, and there were some P-40s stationed over there. And that's where, let's see, there was Taylor and Welch, Remington, I can't think of the others. There was about 6 of them that got off. Now Taylor and Welch, they each shot down 4 Japanese. And between the anti-aircraft fire from the Navy and the Army, we shot down a total of 29 planes. But you know, the one thing I couldn't understand, with all those Japanese planes flying around that base, why some didn't crash into each other, because they were flying every which way you could think of, with the machine guns going and bombs falling. Of course, Navy got it the worst. They got it the worst. And then the one thing that, when I went back to Hawaii one time, I went back before the Arizona Memorial was finished. And we had to take a little cruise ship, or boat, from Kewalo Basin, downtown Honolulu. And it took us out into the ocean, past Honolulu Harbor, into Pearl. Now this little excursion ship, boat, whatever, they had permits to do this. So they took us around all the different ships that were damaged and sunk that day, and they saved the Arizona for the last. And the commentator on the boat, he was also describing what happened. And he got to the Arizona and he talked about how it was sunk. And then he said, you know, the Arizona, there was 1,177 men killed instantly that morning. And the Arizona, even though she lays at the bottom of Pearl Harbor, has never been decommissioned. And she never will be, because you see her crew is still aboard. Referring to the 1,177. And that gets me every time I talk about that. I choke up on it. I choke up a couple of times, but that one really gets me. I'll never forget that man's statement.
And because it was a Sunday, most of the officers aboard the ships, they had their own residences off of the ship, and so the majority of those 1,177 were the 18, 19-year-olds.
I think most of them, well, they had a band concert the night before, and I think the Arizona won either first or second, whatever. But the whole band was killed. I think there was 30 some in the band. Every one of them was killed. As far as the officers are concerned, Admiral Kidd was killed. A couple of 3 captains were killed. But all I can tell you, I don't know about the officers in the Navy. All I know is what I read. I don't know anything firsthand about the Navy.
You're doing wonderful. I really appreciate you opening
Okay.
up. This is really, historically, this is great, because people are going to be able to watch this 200 years from now, and they'll still get to understand what you experienced.
Well, I hope so.
I just have some questions, if that's okay. During the attack, I understand that you were busy taking care of the casualties, but could you put me in your shoes and describe the noises that you're hearing throughout the attack? What are the different type of noises?
Well, it was mostly the rat-a-tat-tat of the machine guns, our own explosives of anti-aircraft, and of course the bombs. And every time you hear a bomb, of course you cringe, sometimes you even hit the dirt. Why, I don't know, but I guess it was just natural instinct to think if I hit the ground I won't get hurt. But a lot of people did. Shrapnel, that was, the shrapnel was about as big a danger as the bullets themselves. And of course, I've never been able to understand why I didn't get hit. But I'm glad I didn't.
You mentioned those 3 close calls you had. Were there any other close calls?
No. The only other close call I had was kind of comical in a way. And that night, running messages, I had to go up to Schofield Barracks. And the messenger, we delivered his messages, and we were on our way back. And we were still on the property of Schofield Barracks. And all of a sudden, my passenger said, stop, there's a challenge. I said, what do you mean? I didn't hear anything. And then I hear it, guys, stop and be recognized. Now, what the hell? Oh, we were challenged. I didn't hear him say halt, but my passenger did. Otherwise, we'd have been shot. So, if you want to call it a close call, I don't know. But
if you could elaborate, what were the tensions like after the attack that night, December 7th, the night?
Oh, God. Well, actually, the only sleep I got was in the front seat of my truck, which, by the way, I had acquired by now. Oh no, that was the next day. I got my big truck back, and so I slept in the truck. I never saw a bed for about 4 days. I slept cat naps in the truck when it was being loaded and unloaded. And we lived off of hardtack and water I didn't have a meal, I think, for about 3 days. We lived off of that hardtack and water. But you didn't think too much about it because you were so doggone busy all the time.
In the days after the attack,
Yeah.
What were you busy doing?
Oh man, we were cleaning up the bays, resupplying everything that had been destroyed. as much as we could, hauling wreckage away, and it was. I must have did 100 different jobs. Well, when I say 100 different jobs, driving the truck, I participated in so many different jobs because it was such a, that base was such a mess. When those Japs got through with it, the guardhouse was blown apart, the fire station, prisoners escaped, but they didn't go anywhere. They turned to and helped the fire department fight fires. Most of them were just people who had minor infractions, like being drunk on duty or absent without leave and got caught up with, or some kind of mischief, nothing serious. So when the guardhouse was blown apart and they all got out, they returned to duty.
Where were you taking the wounded?
Oh, to our little local hospital.
There must have been a lot of people from a lot of places going to there.
As I remember, all we did was pull up to the back of the hospital, and we, at first, we got them into emergency room, and then we had to lay them in the hallways. Then we had to lay them on the porches, and we even had some laying out in the yard. And we had so many, the hospital couldn't take care of them. And the doctors were running around trying to check them more seriously to take care of them first. Some guy with a little arm wound or something, hell, he can wait. Yeah.
As you were dealing with these wounded men, as you were putting them on the truck and bringing them to the hospital, what kind of things would they say? What was their attitude?
Well, we had a few of them were crying. Some of them were screaming with pain. And some were cursing like mad. And I was along with them with the cursing.
During the attack on Pearl Harbor, my understanding is that there were 2 waves of the attack.
Oh, yeah.
What do you remember about the distinction between the 2 waves? What was the difference?
Well, the only thing that I can think of, there was quite a lull. There was about a 20-minute lull, half-hour lull. I'm not sure just how long, but we thought it was over. And then somebody says, "Oh shit, here they come again." And I looked up and there was these high-altitude bombers. They were way up. As I remember, there was no strafing the second time. Not at Hickam anyway. But those big bombers up there, well, high-altitude bombers, they weren't necessarily huge because they wouldn't be able to get off of the ship. But you could see them, they were way up. And you could see the bombs when they fell, little tiny dots. But they were after the Navy. They weren't after us anymore. I guess they figured they'd knocked out all the airplanes, and which they had. They destroyed Wheeler Field, and they destroyed about 90% of the airplanes on the ground. And that was due to the fact that our General Short wanted them all lined up, wingtip to wingtip, supposedly to protect them from sabotage. Well, when I heard this, some weeks later after the attack, I thought to myself, and he's a general? Now, before this started, we just came off of maneuvers on Thursday. And the airplanes were all scattered all over the base, different directions. So they couldn't be straight all at one time. I thought, why would he do that? To guard the plane, leave the plane crew out there with the airplane. He's a general. He's supposed to know what he's doing.